5. If you get a chance to get on Facebook, get on that link and just tell us what God's doing in your life. We have baptisms and testimony sign-up sheets back there. We also have one Bible left. That's good. We're going to have to order more Bibles, David.
Yep, get more Bibles, yeah.
We need more Bibles.
Huh? Need more Bibles.
Oh! Tomorrow at Northridge, school board decided you guys don't need no heat, so you're going to have to worship hard. So dress warm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're Canadian.
I found some, they're not
Exactly,
full,
we're no
there's
babies.
some-
Please help clean up after the service. Put your chairs away. What else we got? Oh, if you by chance go on to NR Church at Northridge and click on the link on Saturday Night Live, you'll get a video of our message every week. And I think that's it, eh?
What was it?
That's all?
What's
Do you
that?
mind flicking the lights on?
The link.
Yeah.
So go to NR Church,
In our church?
which is Northridge Church.
.ca.
.ca, and click on the link. Go to Saturday Night Live. And actually, go to the videos first, then Saturday Night Live link, and you'll be able to get the message.
Okay.
All messages.
There you go.
I'll do that.
Okay, I'm done.
Beautiful. You're done.
Well,
You're done, and everybody's gonna be really happy because I've only got 3 verses today.
What?
These things.
you do. That's who decides it. Oh.
All right, I should start with a confession. Yeah, and the confession's kind of funny, based on what we're talking about today. But so it's funny because I often will make fun of myself on Sunday mornings about the fact that I can't resist a good burger or even a bad burger. Just any, I like fast food. I like stuff that's bad for me, and I'm not getting nearly enough exercise these days. And so I'll talk about that. And there was one time this lady at our church said, "You know what? You talk about it all the time about how you eat badly and you never get enough exercise, but you never do anything about it." And she was busting me for not actually like changing my ways and getting better. Well. Yeah, ouch is right. Yeah. And so, anyways, my bad habits have continued, as some of you already know. I don't remember what day it was, but I was working at the hub. I had to go to the bank, and the bank is so close to Walmart, and Walmart has Oreos and milk. And so I got a box of Oreos and 2% milk, and that's I know. and I thought I could have my little secret stash of junk food, but I ran into Stefan before. Actually, I ran into you before I did that, and then I ran into Darcy. Well, no, that was you guys are my third on my list. Darcy Woodworth, who some of you guys know, and I ran into him in Walmart. And then I ran into the busload of guys while I'm like drinking. I think milk was like spilling down the front of my shirt and mouthful of Oreos, because you got to have both in your mouth at the same time, am I right? If you can't actually dunk it in, you got to do the dunking inside your mouth. And so it was a bit of a humiliating, a humbling moment to be caught
That's awesome.
face stuffed with Oreos. But I was talking to Mike and he forgives me. Yeah.
I think you're the only one that does that. You fill your mouth and then drink.
No, seriously?
No.
I do that.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's, if you can dunk it, you dunk it, right? That's plan A. But if you can't dunk, you got to do something.
You got a face dunk.
Face dunk. That's right. Okay, while we're on the topic of gross food mixings, does anybody else dip their fries in their shake or in their Frosty? Where did that start? I don't know where that started.
So delicious.
But it is delicious.
You gotta have a double quarter pounder.
In fact, you know what? Church is canceled. Let's go eat. No, I'm just kidding. Well, it's a little bit ironic. Do you mind? This is going to sound really picky. Hitting the little green button to make it maximum size. This is just a picky little thing. There you go. Picky. All right, today, here's the big idea. Oh, it's not working. Oh, that's too bad. Do you mind going to the next slide? My finger's not working.
And now you're working.
There you go. Ian will make it work. Oh, that's the oh no, there we go. Here's the big idea for today. Jesus warns about the dangers of hypocrisy. How many of you, and maybe you still do, how many of you, when you think of Christians, you think of just hypocrites? That they point their fingers at you and they're telling you how you're supposed to live your life, and then they go home and beat their wife and get high and do all these things they tell other people not to do. You ever, what's that?
Is it rhetorical?
No, I'm looking for a show of hands now. But I know for a lot of people, the way Christians walk out their lives does more harm than Satan does for Christianity. In fact, I think that Christians have changed more minds about faith than the enemy has. And it's because quite often it's really easy to get caught up in that hypocritical style. And quick shout out, Bobby cut my hair today. That's why it's...
I was wondering where that beauty came from.
Yeah.
Nice.
Actually got Mikey too. I don't know where... Is Mikey here? He should model too, right? Yeah, you're a busy man. Thank you, by the way. But it's a sad truth that that's the truth of so many people who live that life where they kind of stand up before the world and say, look at me, I'm a Christian. In fact, one of the most dangerous lines out of the Bible, Paul says the words, follow me as I follow Christ. Honestly, there are times when I'm scared to say that kind of stuff. And I should be saying that because I'm a pastor, for crying out loud. I should be inviting people to walk with me and follow me as I follow Jesus. But the truth is, I know what a knucklehead I can be, and I don't want you to follow me to Walmart to stuff your face with Oreos and do other stupid things, right? I know that in my life, there are things that you shouldn't be following. There are things that I struggle with. I don't want you to struggle with. And Jesus warns about this. He talks about hypocrisy in some pretty inflammatory terms. Let's go to the next slide, please. Ian, this is the text. Like I said, it almost all fits on one slide. It's just Luke 12, verses 1 to 3. If you did grab a Bible, and if you didn't grab a Bible but you want one, there are a bunch of New Testaments, and so you'll find Luke in the New Testament. I like to give a little bit of context for the author. I've done this a couple times before, so if you've been at Hope for Freedom for a while now, you've heard me talk about the author Luke. So for those of you who don't know, the Bible goes into the Old Testament and the New Testament. And basically the hinge point between the two is before Jesus walked on the earth and after Jesus walked on the earth. Okay? And the first 4 books of the New Testament, the time that Jesus was on the earth and after that, the first 4 books are all books about the life of Jesus. It would be kind of like if Ian got up, walked over here, kicked over a chair, and then walked out of the room, and then I asked Raymond what happened, I asked Steve what happened, I asked Josh what happened, and I asked Jessica what happened, I would get 4 versions of the same story. Now, if they're all telling the truth, they're all accurate from their perspective, but Jessica's going to see stuff that Raymond's not going to see. She's going to see that there was actually a bee on the chair that he was trying to kick, and he just kicked over the chair. He didn't want to kick over it, and Raymond might not see that. But between the 4 accounts, they get one full story. It's almost like those new 3D cameras where now you can, actually I don't know how they work, I shouldn't use that as an example, but how it's not just a picture from one perspective, you can look at it from all these different perspectives, right? And that's how this works. Now Luke is one of the 4 authors. And what's interesting about Luke is Luke never met Jesus. He writes about Jesus. He tells us what Jesus said, but Luke didn't actually he wasn't one of Jesus' disciples. Are you going to kick over a chair again? No. He wasn't one of Jesus' disciples. What Luke was, I like to think of Luke like Indiana Jones. You know how Indiana Jones, he's like an archaeologist, he's a professor at some university, but he goes on these amazing adventures. And Luke was the same. Luke was a trained medical doctor. He was Dr. Luke. Very, very bright, very educated. And And what he did is he traveled with Paul. And you know about Paul. Paul went on these crazy adventures telling the world about Jesus. And Luke went around with him, and basically Luke learned from Paul the things about Jesus. And Luke was super careful. In fact, the way Luke starts is like, I'm writing this book to give you an accurate account. Something that you can sink your teeth into, something you can trust to be the story of Jesus. He's very careful, and he makes a strong claim that this is the truth. So that's who Luke is. And so if you read the four Gospels, they read a little bit differently. Matthew was a Jewish guy, and he was a tax collector. So he was kind of big into the law, both the law of the land and God's law. And he wrote to Jews. Mark, if you read Mark, it's like watching an action movie. It hits all the main points really fast. It's just like kind of get in, get out, tell the story, no other fluff. Matthew, Mark, Luke is super detailed, big into lineages and accurate history. And then John is referred to as the disciple who Jesus loved. He was Jesus' closest, like, of all the disciples, he was his guy. He was his right-hand guy. And he talked from a relationship standpoint. Anyways, this is all just talking about the author. We're going to pick up in Luke chapter 12, and it's just 3 verses. All right? This is what it says. In the meantime, when so many thousands of people had gathered together that they were trampling one another, so Jesus at this point was well into his ministry, and he had quite a following. Okay, people couldn't get enough of this guy. The things he was saying were literally blowing their minds. Thousands of years of tradition. And I should say Jewish tradition that was on display for the non-Jews, for the Gentiles. So the world knew about faith, about Judaism, and now Jesus was coming, and he was shedding light on it. He was putting some things right that were off base. And so he's doing a lot of teaching. And people were gathering around him because he was doing miracles too. People were super excited and wanted to see Jesus. So he was getting quite a following. So people were like trampling over one another. He began to say to his disciples first. So even in this huge crowd, he kind of turned off to the side and he's talking to his disciples. He says, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy." Okay? So be careful about the hypocrisy of the Pharisees. This is really what I want to teach on today, but I'm going to read the rest of this here. Nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. You're not going to be able to go to Walmart, get Oreos, and get all the way back to the hub without somebody catching you. All right? Therefore, can you go to the next slide, please, Steve? Therefore, whatever you said in the dark shall be heard in the light, and whatever you whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed in the housetops. So let's actually, I want to camp at this first, at the beginning of this quote here, or the beginning of Jesus' words. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. I know Josh is a cook. When you hear that word leaven, do you know what that means?
Isn't it a universal number?
Oh, leaven, not... no, it's not a number. It's
It's like the law.
Can you say it again?
The law has nothing to do with the law.
It's okay. Think cooking for a second.
Yeast.
Who said yeast? Okay, so what does yeast do?
Rises.
It rises. Okay, so yeast starts small, but then it has a reaction and it causes rising. If you didn't have yeast in bread, it would be this flat cracker bread. Okay. In fact, tomorrow at Northridge, we're going to share communion. And we're going to have the juice. And by the way, I should be saying this more regularly. Just so you know, there isn't any alcohol. It's grape juice. Okay? Cheap grape juice. But actually, it's yeah. So it's grape juice and a cracker. And what the Bible says about that cracker is that it's meant to be unleavened. There shouldn't be any yeast in it. Okay? And so we use a cracker. But yeast makes things rise and swell. So I think the picture that Jesus is trying to give us here is beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. This is something that starts small and then it kind of expands and becomes a bigger problem. He's saying, beware of this problem. And the problem is hypocrisy.
Oh.
Now, what hypocrisy is, and I kind of gave you a picture already, is if I tell you to do one thing, but then I go home, or if I tell you not to do it, and I go home and do it, okay, that's being hypocritical. I'm being a hypocrite. That is hypocrisy. Or if I tell you to do something that I'm never going to do, again, that's hypocrisy. And hypocrisy drives Jesus nuts. It's one of those things, it's like this trigger thing in him. Because what hypocrisy is you're putting yourself forward as somebody who is wonderful, who kind of knows it all. And yet, none of us know it all. None of us are perfect or really all that wonderful. I think my wife's pretty wonderful. But even she's not perfect. But hypocrisy is, the first step of hypocrisy is putting yourself forward in a spot where you want the spotlight, you want to look good, you want to be known as special or important. But then the horrible part of hypocrisy is not just the pride at the beginning, but it's the fall behind the scenes, where you're falling short of the very things you're saying to do. I'll tell you where I see this the most. I see this the most in social media. And some of you are like, social media, I'm just not going to be bothered with it. But some of you are in on these different platforms in social media. But I see a lot of times in social media where people get up on their soapbox, and it can be anything from, I'm going to give you some tough ones here, anything from abortion. People have some really strong feelings on abortion, and they get on their soapbox, and they tell the world to think. And again, I should elaborate on that, but just hear what I'm saying first. Vaccinations, we had this conversation today, like vaccinations, Donald Trump, like all these hot topics. You see people very bravely, very boldly telling everybody what they should think. And you know what? There's a danger to that. And now, don't get me wrong. I believe that there are people called by God to speak boldly about the truth. I believe that God does come. We see it in the Bible. The whole Old Testament is full of these prophets who were hated in their land because they spoke boldly what the truth was. But you're putting yourself in harm's way when you go to those lengths and say to everybody, this is what you should think about this. This is how you should behave. This is what you should and shouldn't do. You got to be darn near perfect in the background. Because how many people have we seen in a place where they're trusted and loved publicly, but then we find out later their failings in life, and all of the good that they were trying to do in public gets torpedoed by the dorkiness of what was going on in the background. Which brings us to the second part of the thing here. Nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. I'm going to give you a very personal example, and I'm sensitive about doing this in mixed company, and there's lots of females here today, but I'm going to confess something, that I have struggled with pornography. And one of the things that has been really difficult is that you got these phones that have access to everything you could imagine, right? And I've been married. I'm about to celebrate my 25th wedding anniversary, and pornography shouldn't play a part in our marriage. But sadly, there were times in our marriage where it was a problem. And I don't know if you've ever known the feeling, either the feeling when you've done something wrong and when you're a little kid and you know you're going to get busted by mom or dad, they're going to find out, and you got that sick, gross, guilty feeling in your stomach. And I don't know if you've been in a marriage relationship where you know that you've done something wrong, and it's just a matter of time before you get caught. You know that feeling? Okay? Maybe you're better than me, I don't know. But I've had that feeling. I'll tell you what, the opposite of that feeling is amazing. Where my phone, I left on the table over there. I'll leave it around the house. My wife knows she can go on it whenever she wants now. I've turned on the light. Actually, light isn't used as one of the examples here, but I've taken the hiddenness of my phone away. So now it's not something that I'm worried about falling into the wrong hands. I probably should be more careful because I get sensitive church emails and stuff like that on my phone, and so I don't actually have a password on my phone, but I probably should. Now y'all want to go look at my phone now, don't you? But it's one of those things where we need to realize that the things that were once or maybe at one time hidden will get revealed. Okay? And here it goes, it says, therefore whatever you said in the dark will be heard in the light. Those things, and they use the example there, what you've said in the dark, but the things you do in secret, they're not going to stay secret forever. Okay? And man, the difference, it's funny when God gives us advice, when Jesus gives us advice, isn't it amazing how it's actually good for us? Because if you lead a life, and what we're talking about here is integrity. If you lead a life where you have no dirty secrets, you're not walking around worried about people finding out what those secrets are. I had a really good conversation. Actually, you know what? I didn't ask your permission, Bobby, but I'm going to tell a quick story that you told me today. Yeah. Okay? It's an awesome story. So I was asking about like I said, he cut my hair, and as he's cutting my hair, it's like, how did it all start? And he was just cleaning up and getting ready to go look for a job. Walked into this brand new barber shop, and the guy cut your hair. Yeah. And as he's cutting, Bobby's telling him like his whole story. And he's talking to his barber, right? Like it's no big thing. And he's getting his hair cut so he can go to a job interview and look the part and hopefully get a good job. Well, at the end of the thing, he told me he'd cut hair in jail, and so Rami said, well, you want to cut the hair of the next person that comes in? And so he did, and the guy said, you're pretty good. With a little training, you'd be really good. And here's Bobby's thinking, what the heck? I just told him every awful thing about myself, and now he offers me a job? That's a pretty cool testimony about Rami, but it's also a picture of the lightness that comes when you open and make yourself vulnerable and bring things to light. There's a freedom that comes with that. That's why I love the name of Hope for Freedom Society. And that's why I love what you guys are involved in right now. And it's that whole, like, let's stop hiding this problem. Let's stop hiding this hang-up and deal with it, get the help we need to get back on the right path and make something of ourselves. And I love it. It's awesome. And I'm going to be honest for a second. I get frustrated at times when I'm working with people who have been in church all their lives. What people like myself like to do is we like to make sure we look the part, our hair's just right, our kids are really well behaved. By the way, you guys are amazing. You want to look good so nobody ever asks you what's going on inside. So nobody ever asks you about those things that you're struggling with. And so you know what doesn't happen? You never fix those things. You never deal with those things. They just sit and they fester. But when you make yourself vulnerable, when you take a chance, and you confess, when you bring these things to light, that's when God can start to do a work in your life. That's when he can get the business of transformation done. So when it comes to hypocrisy, one of the things that is missing is humility. Hypocrisy is when you puff yourself up and say, look at me, but then you don't really have your act together back here. Humility is coming humbly and saying, look, I'm broken too. Let's walk through this together. And sometimes people are good at the humility part, but they never take care of the stuff that's going in the background. It's almost like they embrace their sin. Well, this is just who I am. This is it. And what's missing there is that integrity part. That part that what you're doing in the dark, it's not a problem. Like if the lights go on, you're not going to freak out like, oh my goodness, what are people going to see? Integrity is doing the things that are unseen when you're unseen, that you can still be proud of, things that you're not ashamed of. Does that make sense? Therefore, whatever you said in the dark will be heard in the light. What you have whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops. He's talking there, I think a person that is hypocritical, they like to step up to the mic and be heard and be seen. They like the attention. And they're good at putting on the face and the look to do well when they've got the attention. But then when they step away from the attention, they're a dork. But when you are not hypocritical, even your whispers, the things that are whispered in the private rooms, they're going to have power. They're going to be heard. And maybe you know a person like this, where you can have a conversation. You just walk up to you, start talking, and it's just the two of you, and it's nothing they've rehearsed. It's not a speech they're giving, but they say something, they give you a nugget, and you're like, man, that was wise. And then you share it, and you give credit for what was said, and now it starts to trickle out there, and it has this power. Things that are whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops. You mind going to the last slide, please, Ian? Here's the point. What's the point? Jesus reminds us that the things we do in private won't always be secret. They won't always be private. Live with integrity. And I'm going to say at church, that's how I talk to people. Church, you guys are church right now. We're doing church. Church, it's not easy to live with integrity. Integrity is almost like sobriety, where as soon as you slip up, it really hits you. It's like, now I don't have my integrity, and so we can go on a slide of stupidity. Okay, but it's something that you can practice. I'll tell you one way to start is with your mouth, and it's a hard thing. The Bible talks about how hard it is to tame your tongue. But one of the things you can practice is the way you talk about other people behind their back. You can be a good gossip. That's why I'm just getting to know Caitlin, and she's already got a really positive reputation in our church. I've talked about 3 or 4 different people who have met her, and they're like, wow, she's really neat, and they're telling me different parts of her story, stuff like that. But that's good gossip. That's gossip that builds people up. And you know what? You never have to worry about getting caught for good gossip. Like, oh no, what if somebody finds out that I was saying something nice about them behind their back? Whereas, when you talk smack about somebody behind their back, you know it's going to come out, right? Especially in a house of 25 men. And it's going to come out, and there's going to be ramifications. You're gonna have to own it. So that's what I want to say about integrity. Tonight we're going to do 2 more things. We don't normally finish with worship, but we're going to finish with worship. But before that, I want to walk you through how